Tomorrow will mark a huge moment in the XRP community as we officially have the first XRP spot ETF live in US markets. And in this video, I want to go over some expectations I have around that, as well as talk about a potentially massive problem for Bitcoin that XRP doesn't have. Like always, you're supporting me so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you guys ever need a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange Uphold down in the description of this video. But that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. I want to start out this video and actually talk about something real quick that I believe is a huge benefit for tokens like XRP that's really going under the radar. Just less than a year ago, there was a huge debate about whether or not cryptocurrencies were securities or not. And XRP obviously led the market in proving in a federal court that XRP itself and most other digital tokens are not securities. But I saw this earlier today and just wanted to share it with you guys because a lot of people started following my channel at the beginning of the Ripple SEC case. And there was these huge debates on what would be a security and what wouldn't be a security. And all these wannabe lawyers and actually lawyers, but just bad lawyers, I guess, came out and said XRP is definitely a security. These tokens are security. Everything other than Bitcoin is a security. Well, guys, earlier today, we actually got official language from the new Token Taxonomy Act being passed. And what we're seeing is network tokens / digital commodities are not securities. This is explicit proof that we have been right on this issue from the very, very beginning. John Deaton was one of the first people to really highlight this, but the XRP community has been spot on since day one. Tokens like XRP don't represent any kind of contract with Ripple, the company. And in fact, XRP is just a decentralized asset, something that is completely unowned by any individual party, and therefore it cannot be a security. This is what the XRP community was saying for years upon years, while the rest of the cryptocurrency industry really failed to understand this simple concept. But it looks like now, not only was the XRP community right and proven right in the Ripple SEC case conclusion where XRP was deemed not a security by a federal judge, but now we have policy literally being written around this ruling and showing that, once again, the cryptocurrency is never the security. And I just think a lot of people in the XRP community need to take a step back and realize how right we were. Even in that entire period where all these different legal experts were saying, no, XRP is definitely a security, Ripple can't beat the SEC in court. Not only were we right through that entire thing, but now it's not even a one-off. It has become precedent and becoming the new norm for this entire industry moving forward. And guys, I always say this, but I don't think this is going to be the only thing the XRP community is right on, because we've been right on so many different things. And I think it's going to flow into the institutional adoption side, the large corporate use cases, the liquidity needs of these institutions, decentralized settlement, right? Those things just take a little bit longer to play out. But just keep in mind, even when everyone, even like the legal experts were saying, oh, you don't understand this stuff, this is what us lawyers do, XRP is a security. All those people were wrong. They were proven wrong again and again. And now look where we are. The United States government is literally coming out and saying, yeah, no, they had it right since day one. XRP is not a security. These things are digital commodities. Don't worry about it. We essentially got the entire Ripple SEC case wrong, and everyone who jumped on our backs cheerleading us saying that we were right also completely had it wrong. So guys, those people will continue to be wrong. If they couldn't understand the basic securities analysis, I don't anticipate them being right on the rewiring of the future financial system, so they can keep kicking and screaming and yelling. To me, it just seems like, once again, the XRP community is being proven to be one of the most intelligent communities and as far ahead of the curve as possible when it comes to diagnosing the success of these different networks. With that said, I want to move on and actually talk about a potentially big problem with Bitcoin that not a lot of people really talk about, or in my opinion, really highlight enough. And funny enough, this really isn't an issue with XRP, and I want to highlight why. Now, one of the biggest problems Bitcoin is running into right now is the fact that it's in this weird hybrid stage where people want to call it digital gold, but at the same time, they're trying to get people to spend Bitcoin, right? Half the community sees Bitcoin as a transactional vehicle, and the other see it as an investment vehicle. The problem is there's no issued currencies on the Bitcoin network. So you only really have one token, right? I don't understand why anyone in their right mind would ever spend their Bitcoin, especially for like a hamburger, right? Have you ever heard of the Bitcoin pizza guy? He bought a pizza with a bunch of Bitcoin, and now that Bitcoin is worth billions of dollars. The idea that people are going to want to spend their digital gold is kind of comical in my eyes. No one is going to want to spend their digital gold. They're going to want to hoard it. And traditionally, people who invest in things, allocate fiat to these different investments, are doing so to preserve the fiat value or not to spend it or not to lose the money. They are doing this from the perspective of they want to see this money grow. And that is completely different than using something as a transactional vehicle. So for all the people out there saying, oh, well, in the future, we'll just like spend our Bitcoin, right? It just doesn't really make any sense. And I wrote a post about this I want to read real quick. I said, I don't really agree with this perspective because it only holds true if Bitcoin was the base asset in a global monetary system. Because USD remains the base asset, this dynamic is very problematic for Bitcoin. When you pay someone, you're doing so with value you no longer view as an investment, but rather as a medium of exchange. Investing, on the other hand, requires a calculated risk decision, which is precisely why most people don't hold 100% of their wealth in a single asset. So from a behavioral standpoint, it's unlikely that people would choose to transact with an asset they deliberately chose to invest in. This is really not a technical limitation at all. It has everything to do with the reflection of human psychology and how people separate risk-based investments from everyday transactions. Now, on the Bitcoin network, you can't get around this dichotomy because the only token on the Bitcoin network is Bitcoin. And therefore, you're always stuck in this weird paradigm of what is the purpose of the Bitcoin? Is it digital gold or is it a transactional vehicle? There's no other way to use that network in a monetary system that really meets what it will ever need to be a transactional vehicle. Now, the XRP ledger was built very differently from the start, and this is so important to understand. The XRP ledger has the capability to have issued currencies, right? So no one really expects in the future that people are going to be going to the store and buying things with XRP. It just doesn't really make any sense because a store merchant probably doesn't want XRP. And your average grandma or dad or son or random friend, right? Most of those people could care less about cryptocurrency. They just want to go spend money. Look, I'm not giving them investment advice on that, but that's the way people are. That's how people interact. No one is going to want to be pricing things and, oh, XRP is up 4% today and down 5% tomorrow. But that's not a problem for the XRP ledger because the founders of Ripple and the early creators of the XRP ledger recognized this from the start. They said, look, we have to have issued currencies. Governments are not going away. Fiat is not disappearing. You need to be able to issue a dollar-denominated unit on the XRP ledger because that's what people are going to want to transact in. And that, to me, looks exactly where the world is headed. XRP is not necessarily the transactional token. You can transact in it if you want, just like you can transact in anything if you want to. I could transact with someone with my Tesla stock. Might be hard to find someone who wants it necessarily for a loaf of bread, but it's theoretically possible. Just like I could transact with any one of you with XRP if we decided to do business that way. But the vast majority of people are just not going to see it like that. And that's why it's so important to separate the functionality from the native token XRP from some of these transactional details that will have to be handled by fiat. The vast majority of people would rather probably just save and hoard XRP and spend fiat. And that's why XRP's position on the XRP ledger is so important. It's not trying to be some transactional thing that people don't want to use. No, instead it's used as pristine liquidity on the network or to back the transactions that are going to be happening in the global monetary system. You can't force people to change their behavior, but what you can do is give them better tools to conduct their behavior in a better way. XRP acts as the liquidity to allow these transactions that are already happening and people are already accustomed to continue happening on a decentralized neutral settlement platform. XRP is just the liquidity. But you don't have to force people to change their habits and say, okay, now you have to start pricing your life in XRP. That's what the Bitcoiners are trying to do with Bitcoin. And ultimately, I think it's going to be a really big problem. And guys, with that said, I want to get to the final point, and that is tomorrow we officially have the first ever spot XRP ETF. This is really big news. Honestly, guys, a lot of people are like, oh, why is it taking so long? I never expected in a million years to see this happen so quickly. It is crazy to see. Now, I think I made another video in the past about how there was a different first spot XRP ETF. I think I actually got that wrong. It was like a 75% spot XRP ETF with some not spot also backing it. But tomorrow, Canary's XRP ETF will be the first ever spot XRP ETF on the market. What I am expecting to see in terms of volume is probably between 10 and $20 million in volume. Anything above that, I think, is going to be incredibly bullish, and I think we will beat that. The other note would be is a lot of people are asking me, hey, I want to buy this XRP ETF. Look, if you already own XRP, there's not really a purpose. If you're watching these videos right now, you're probably better off just going out and buying XRP itself. This is more of a product for people who don't know how to buy XRP, are stuck in their traditional brokerage accounts, are working with investment advisors who typically didn't have access to this stuff. This is going to unlock a whole new pool of capital, but is it something that I'm personally going to be purchasing? No, absolutely not. There's not really a reason for me to. I would personally just rather hold spot XRP. There's no reason for me to participate in the ETF. But for me, this is opening the barriers from TradFi to this new cryptocurrency world. And once that barrier is officially ripped down, it can never be put back up. This is the introduction, really, of traditional finance into the XRP ledger world. And I could not be more excited for this to take off. It's going to bring in new demand, new buyers, new people in the ecosystem, and add an incredible amount of credibility to XRP for these financial institutions moving forward. So guys, buckle up. This is going to be a really big deal. I don't think it's necessarily going to be, oh, tomorrow morning XRP is at $1 million. But guys, over time, these are the kinds of things that are going to bring in trillions of dollars to the XRP ledger ecosystem by opening it up to the largest money pools on earth. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. And for now, Mickle out.